I haven't told Wesley yet. Of course, he doesn't know yet that we have 150,000 supporters, Wesley.
Whoa.
I know, right? What do you have to say?
Thank you.
Yes, we really appreciate every single supporter, every person that's protecting, children's lives and all patients' lives. We appreciate your support. By the end of this video, I believe that you will see why I'm concerned again that the pharmacy benefits managers like Express Scripts, CVS, and OptumRx who own their own mail order pharmacies that they force us to for the most life-saving medications. Why I'm concerned that these life-saving medications are not going to be protected from the extreme temperatures. We're not going to be warned when they reach outside of the safe temperature ranges. It just sounds like they're going to just let them regulate themselves. I just feel like if they're not going to give us a choice other than a use mail order pharmacy, then we should have the choice to protect our medications, keep them out of those temperature extremes, to be warned when medications could have possibly been altered. So please listen. I'm going to insert my commentaries throughout the video.
Meeting in Tallahassee. And so really I think that's the question. I know the board has a lot of large asks of us coming up this calendar year. Is this one that we really feel that is necessary or really has a significant impact to the shipping of medications? And so I will tell you, since the meeting in Tallahassee, my mind has been spinning and I've been looking at tons of research. I went to the USP, which dictates a lot of the stuff that we do within drug control. There was a chapter back in 2000 that actually had to do with distribution of medications that was actually repealed from the USP.
So I understand a lot of people, probably like myself, may have never heard of USP before. It's nothing to do with UPS, the brown trucks. Well, not directly. So basically USP writes universal recommendations that the FDA and state boards of pharmacy commonly go by, drug manufacturers as well, on just the best standards of medication practices. So it really breaks my heart here because USP, he's alleging, had repealed some standards and shipping medications back in 2000. And he's implying that there's nothing in place now for the mail order pharmacy to go by, and that's just not true. I wonder if he really truly reached out to USP, because I did. And the reason why I did is because the mail order pharmacy alleges that they're using USP's recommendations when they're shipping medications. They said that USP allows them to ship up to 104 degrees, so I reached out to USP to find out myself if that was true. But although we know that the trucks and the mailboxes get up, they get a lot hotter than that. It was 91 degrees here the other day. I put a sensor in my mailbox. It got 121 degrees. Our children's liquid oral medications are at such risk at those temperatures when they ship them in only a bag, as the mail order pharmacy told me that they do. So when I reached out to USP, I got something back from Ellen Wilcox, who is the Director of External Communications. I will put this on my website. She states that she reached out to Desmond Hunt, who actually helps write the temperature and storage guidelines for USP. She states that he said the instructions that you see on the packaging insert are exactly the same that appear on the product label and carry the same weight. As noted, the instructions say store at 77 degrees Fahrenheit, excursions permitted 59 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. These instructions also apply to shipping as stated in the document that we provided, which is this document, which I really hope that the Florida State Board of Pharmacy will look at, because USP says here in their USP Journal Chapter 659 that shipping is a subset of storage. In the life cycle of drug product, shipping would be anticipated to occur under the applicable conditions of storage. Therefore, all requirements for storage also apply during shipping, which includes every step of the medication's journey from the manufacturer to the patient. Thank you, USP, for being ethical, for caring about moms like me who are forced to have no other option other than to use mail order pharmacy. And for all the other patients on specialty medications, these are not just, average everyday medications. These are life-saving medications that people's lives depend on, and ensuring that they are the best quality and that patients have options to pick up these medications. That's so important. But if they're not going to give us an option, at least protect those life-saving medications. So let's continue.
Does this, you start pulling on that kind of that rug, and you start to see it unraveling and how large that this project can become. So I think that's my first question from the board, or from the board members. And I really want to hear from Mr. Michat and Mr. Basilian as consumers. At the time, we had a great compelling story that we heard about medication that was received that may have caused, increased titers or, an adverse event to a child. You still kind of weigh it out, and you know that medications shipped all over the country everywhere. I still go down to, when I looked at $4.99 and I looked at the requirements of a pharmacy, there is a certain responsibility that all pharmacies have to dispense medication that is unadulterated. To me, that means that it's safe and effective. If we go down this route and start to do very prescriptive rules of how pharmacies dispense medication, are people already doing the right thing? Is this over-regulation? Is this something that's necessary? Those were all the questions that kind of popped.
It was my son's compelling story that he heard. And I just wonder, I had to sit there and hold my son as he was screaming and crying. They could not insert the PICC line. Hours I heard my son scream and cry. And at that same time, I'm thinking about the medications and how hot they got in the truck. And I just wondered, could that have been the issue? I could have lost my son. I just wonder if anyone else who sits on these state boards of pharmacy would ever want to have to be the one that would have to risk their child's life. It's our children and patients who are taking more sensitive medications that can be most greatly harmed. Like the insulins and children's liquid oral medications. We have to make sure those are all protected, and that patients are alerted somehow that, hey, your medication is no longer safe to take. Because right now, it's just not safe to rely on the mail order pharmacies to do it themselves. So let's talk about the unraveling of the rug. 20 years ago, there is an article in Managed Care where they discussed the issues with temperatures and medications and people getting frozen insulin. And the state boards of pharmacy knew back then that this was an issue, and they ignored it. That was before anyone was being forced. The Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, please be familiar with them, because they always have a way of kind of twisting things around that you need to be aware of. But that's the Association for Express Scripts, CVS, OptumRx. They kind of laughed that off in the Managed Care article and said, the medications don't get any hotter than if you went outside and you put them on the dashboard of your car. The dashboard of your car can get extremely hot. And all that was a true statement. That means it's not okay, though, to put your child's liquid medications in those conditions. Also, they mentioned that people were getting frozen insulin back then. It was just ignored. We can no longer allow them to ignore this issue, as specialty meds are on the rise, and they are very sensitive to temperatures. We have to protect our life-saving meds. Let's continue.
Right, I think it is very complicated as well, but patient safety needs to be first and foremost. I believe there's many times that drugs are shipped by mail order that sit in mailboxes for days and days and days. Happened to my parents. That's just an anecdotal thing. With that being said, did the drug work? Not sure. They were gone, come back, and for months there's this bag sitting on their doorstep from their mail order pharmacy that they had to use. So, I think it is out there. I think drawing attention to this is important. I think even with
Thank you so much to the board member who became a true hero and took a stand for the patient. So usually on these state boards, there's only one or two that actually represent the patient. it's sad. I mean, here we are. We're the ones whose lives are in jeopardy if medications aren't stored properly, but yet there's only one or two speaking on behalf of us instead of the corporations. That's an issue. So when we're looking at this, at the Missouri State Board of Pharmacy, there was also someone who said, one of the board members said that they know that this is an issue because they themselves received medications that had been frozen. So, I'm thankful to those board members who aren't afraid to say, yes, this is something that we need to address. So thank you.
Just have to make sure that, I think everybody's on the same playing field, and then if we do have an event like this, the person who had the really bad experience, then the Board of Pharmacy can do something about it.
Cannot dispense unadulterated drugs, but I think that the problem is that we're talking about the next step here, is that when a pharmacy puts the drug in the box, it is at that moment unadulterated. And if they're allowed to then wash their hands of it, then the question is does it remain unadulterated throughout the whole time? So when it's put in the box, so the question is there's a big question of the dispensing, of when the actual dispensing occurs, but when the pharmacist is absolutely under an obligation to make sure that that drug that they put in that box and seal with tape is unadulterated. The question is how much ownership do they have of it after it gets put in the mail? That's why I think that you're right, that highlighting it and making it clear that that there's ownership over the process until it is received by the consumer in an unadulterated state is important as well. And that may just be something as very simple as putting, just a couple of words that says that the pharmacy shall be responsible for maintaining, shall put policies and procedures in place to ensure that the drugs are received in an unadulterated fashion by the consumer.
Was that a motion, Mr. Frizell?
One of the things that the mail order pharmacy told me whenever I called was that when I asked them about the temperatures of the UPS trucks, they said that they could not control UPS. I found that alarming because I found out that the trucks can reach up to 170 degrees. So if they cannot control UPS and they're not going to try to protect our medications, then why are we being forced to that? And who's responsible? And this is the thing that pharmacy benefit managers do, and the same thing that UPS does, that constantly point the fingers at each other when things happen and go wrong when it comes to temperatures and medications. I love this idea of actually including something that says that the pharmacy is responsible for ensuring the integrity of the product from the pharmacy all the way to the patient's door. That is a wonderful idea. However, the general language, we still need even something beyond that to make sure that medications are protected, to ensure that they are being regulated, that someone's checking to make sure that they're doing the right thing when it comes to shipping these medications in extreme temperatures.
Maybe before we decide to go down that route of changing the regulations, maybe increase education. We have the email blast. We have the board website. I think there's opportunities to increase the awareness of this issue, especially being in Florida. Maybe an opportunity versus going down we need to change the regulation.
I'm afraid that education is not going to be enough. Mail order pharmacy is knowing that they're risking patients' lives. A lot of patients didn't even know that their medications were at risk. A lot of the United States didn't even know that this was happening, and mail order pharmacy temperatures were not regulated until our advocacy. So I'm sorry, but education isn't going to work with PBMs and ensuring that they ship our medications, or their pharmacies ship our medications safely. We need a lot more than regulations. If you're from Florida, you need to fight for this.
General language there, I think that might very well do what needs to be done to get
control. I think we can, if we use that verbiage of delivery and dispense and delivery and unadulterated product, the product just be done there. Could be very similar.
Ms. Rivera, thank you, Mr. Ray.
Since I'm not going to be in the meeting, I just want you guys to know that each of those, if you're going to buy for heat and cold, are like $2.55 each. So that's I'm just saying that if we we have to note that this will create, if we're gonna do it for all prescriptions, you're gonna do it for expensive injectable that needs to be temperature monitored. It's understood that we can't do blanket statements saying you're gonna use these systems for every drug, because with some of them, you don't even make $2.55 on a prescription.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Dr. McCann?
Yeah, and I think that that's a great consideration, Ms. Rivera, and I think that's why the generality, putting the responsibility on the pharmacy or the permit to make sure, and you decide whether you want to spend the $2.50, whether you have a validated shipping box, whether you have a drug monograph that says you can have certain excursions that ensure the integrity of the drug. It kind of empowers the permit to make those decisions, what is safe for their patients.
I think that we need a step beyond general language. If they're going to use general language, and we need someone to go and, audit them, make sure that they're actually doing what they said they're going to do. I mean, our local pharmacies, they get audited all the time. If their medications, like I said earlier, are a couple degrees off, their stock is gone and they're heavily fined. So if they can do it for the independent pharmacists and do it to our trusted local pharmacies that they're removing our coverage for, then they need to be held accountable and to the same standard. So it's concerning. If you live in Florida, I hope that you'll take an opportunity to maybe raise your voice about this issue. The next meeting is on August the 2nd. It is crucial, to the patients whose lives depend on these medications. So even if you're not on medications yet, but you want to make sure that this issue gets resolved, please advocate. I appreciate all of our supporters. You all mean so much to me, every single one of you. I did start a nonprofit for this issue, and if you would like to help, you can always make a donation. The other ways that you can help is by speaking to your legislators about this. Write your legislators. A lot of people don't realize it's an issue. Keep sharing the petition. But you all have been wonderful. I have so much more hope now than I did a year ago. We're going to keep fighting until we win this. I appreciate you all again, and I hope that you have the most wonderful day or night. Thanks. Bye.